Hi everyone, my name is Pablo Martinez Ulloa. I'm a biomedical engineer. Here is my background, and I am currently doing a PhD in tactile sensor design and friction-based robotic gripping at University College Dublin. And today I'll be giving you the presentation on the paper with the title Modeling the Optical Sensing Principle of the Papillary Sensor. First of all, some motivation behind the project. So as we all know, the human hand is capable of performing complex manipulation tasks with ease. And this is thanks to the mechanoreceptors in our skin that provide us with tactile information, such as an object's weight or shape, so that we can control the grip on these objects. And this tactile information is something that is missing in robotic arms or grippers. So we want to provide them with this sensory input so they can also control the grip force, so that is not too high that they break the object or too low that they allow it to drop. So we're going to focus this study on the papillary sensor, which is a tactile sensor that resembles the papillae of the human skin. And we're going to study its novel instrumentation method, which is based in optics. So we have these silicone pillars that have a cavity inside of them. And inside of the cavity, there's two LEDs that light up light inside of the cavity, which then this light gets reflected at the top, and then it comes back down and through a pinhole aperture, projecting a light spot into a quadrant photodiode. So when the pillar gets deformed, this diffuse reflector is going to change its position, which is going to cause a shift in the projected light spot and a change in intensity. So we're going to be able to measure these changes in the quadrant photodiode signals and estimate the pillar deformations and the force that are exerted on these pillars. So we developed a simulation model to study this optical sensing method, and we created this model that allows us to validate this principle, and we compared the results with experimental data that we obtained in the lab. Here we're going to see a pipeline of the simulation model. So we first did some mechanical deformation of the pillars using ANSYS Workbench. Then we conditioned the geometries in Fusion 360. We imported those geometries into Light Tools, which is software that allows us to simulate the light propagation inside of the cavity. So we can get this simulated projected light spot that we then took into MATLAB, so we could quantify each of the quadrants, so get 4 signals. And with those 4 signals, with those simulated sensor outputs, we were able to create multivariate regression models to estimate the pillar tip positions. So first, we're going to show here a video of the mechanical simulations that we performed. So we just push the pillar up into a static plate and then moved it laterally 8 millimeters into the X direction, as we can see here. And we performed this movement for different compressions. So in the range of 0.5 to 3.5 millimeters with steps of 0.25 millimeters. And for each of those set compressions, we saved the pillar and reflector CAD models for all of these lateral movements. So we obtained many different deformed configurations, and for each of those deformed configurations, we had to bring them into Light Tools and simulate its optical behavior. So here we have an example of the static configuration in Light Tools. So just the pillar in its resting position. We assign the properties of optical absorbers to all of the objects except for this reflector at the top of the cavity, that we gave it Lambertian scattering, so with an 100% reflectance. So it behaves as an ideal reflector. And we have here our receiver acting as our photodiode with 1000 by 1000 mesh. And we're gonna see here what is the result for this static configuration. So we have a perfect projected light spot that is centered, and that gives us a 25% illuminance in each of the four quadrant photodiodes. Here we're just gonna take a look at one of the examples for one of the deformed configurations, so we can see how the reflector position is changed, which is then gonna cause a shift in the position of this projected light spot, and also a change in intensity. And we can quantify these results by measuring the signals of each of these four quadrant photodiodes. So as we mentioned, we did this for all of the form configurations, and we wanted to replicate what we did in simulation, so obtain those same configurations in reality. So we built this test rig, and we have this hexapod, which is a 6 degrees of freedom robotic stage that is gonna push the sensor, push the pillar up into an acrylic plate, and then move it laterally in the X, the same movement as it was done in the simulations. And we have a camera at the top that is gonna track the tip of the pillar position, also to account for slip occurring. Here we can see a video of the movement. So we were recording data from the Papillary Sensor while we were moving the hexapod. So we were getting the 4 quadrant photodiode signals for each of these configurations. So finally, for all those configurations that we studied, we obtained the simulated and the real experimental signals. We converted those signals into voltage to have them to be able to compare them. And we can see here for the simulation how for the static and for the configurations where there's only set compression, no lateral displacement, we get the same signal for each of the quadrant photodiodes. So this means that we obtain a perfectly centered projected light spot that gives us the same signal in the 4 quadrants. And this is something that is not happening in the experimental signals. And this is something that could be explained by manufacturing imprecisions of the sensor, and we're going to see that in a moment. In order to compare better both these signals, we normalize the voltage signal for the simulation results. And for the experimental data, we first bias the signal. So for that, the static configuration, all of the photodiode signals are the same, same as in the simulation. And then we also normalize the signal, and we see how they both look fairly similar. They follow the same pattern. But we can observe how for, as I mentioned before, for these cases where there's only set compression, we don't get the same signals. So this is something that could be explained by a misalignment of the pinhole. We have here the superimposed normalized signals in order to compare them, and we see how they both match quite well. But there are some samples at the end that they don't behave in the same manner, and this is due to a difference in the pillar tip position. So this is just in the cases of 8 millimeter lateral displacement that we see that those changes. So we wanted to explain the difference, why we're getting this results for the static configurations in reality in the lab. And we explored the possibilities of manufacturing imprecisions, and here we found that a possibility could be that the pinhole is misaligned. So actually this pinhole in reality is drilled manually. So this is subjected to mechanical sources of error. And we found that having the pinhole misaligned and center minus 0.4 millimeters in the X and 0.3 millimeters in the Y, this gives us a similar signal to what we are getting experimentally. And we also wanted to take a look at the changes when the pillar gets to form. So we have here one example for one of the form configurations, and we see how this behaves in the same manner in reality and with the simulated model with the misalignment. So even though our sensor is subjected to manufacturing imprecisions, we were able to use both the simulation and experimental data to build these multivariate regression models that allows us to predict the pillar tip position by using the four quadrant photodiode signals. And we were able to do so with a quite high precision, as we can see here. So as a conclusion, we created this simulation model that allows us to validate the optical sensing method, and that allows us also to explore the impact of manufacturing tolerances on sensor accuracy, and that we can use this model in the future to optimize future sensor designs, so we don't have to build them first. So we can use first the simulation model and optimize the design, and finally build the sensor then in the lab. So this is all for my presentation today. Thank you so much for your attendance.